So guys, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of an update. We got our block, our heads, and a bunch of valve train pistons, rods in that box there. So I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a noon update on what day is today? Today's Tuesday. So last night, Sexy Rexy and myself left Kentucky after getting the transmission out of Straight Gangster. We dropped the transmission off at Extreme Automatics in Cincinnati. Somewhere in the Columbus area, we pulled over and we napped for about 4 hours in the car here. And it wasn't nearly as cold as the toter home, I promise you that. We slept in the toter home I didn't turn the heat on. We passed out. I woke up, it was 45 degrees in the toter home. And yeah, that was a little bit rough. But we did pick up those parts there, guys. And this is where I want to get into the story. Guys, this is what makes this deal so freaking difficult. So, that block right there, that motor, is what we heard at Dig or Die, July 22nd of last year. So what is that? That's like a little, whatever, 11 months ago. I dropped it off at the machine shop shortly after that. It needed one sleeve, and I believe one valve, maybe two valves. Still needs those valves, I believe. I guess he never ordered them or nothing like that. So, he's like, hey, a couple months. Okay, deal. And I will say this is the second time I'm filming this video, because the first time the GPS was on and it gave you a location to where the machine shop was. And I'm not naming the machine shop because that's not the whole point of this this video here, I guess, okay? The point of this video is to explain what makes this crap so difficult. Don't get me wrong, we run on a budget, right? But at the same time, this motor is a pretty solid motor, and it should have been a spare for middle of this winter, early spring. We should have been able to run this motor at the pad. We should have been able to have this motor as a spare after we broke the rod in the finals last week. Yeah, a little over a week ago now. Instead of having a thrash to get the good motor that is now currently in a Straight Gangster, instead of having to thrash to get that motor back together, we should have been able to throw the spare in there, right? Fortunately enough, after we hurt this motor at the end of July, a good friend of mine let me borrow his motor. That motor there, we went to the finals at 73 car shootout up in New York, where we lost a crank trigger in the finals. But we were able to get into some money. But this gets into a little bit deeper, and I'm going to explain everything what is so difficult about this. So this motor right here, that's sitting in the back of the car, most of the pieces of it, I have spare rods for it. I have spare pistons for it. I actually had 8 spare rods, and I think 6 spare pistons from the guy I purchased it off of. So a friend of mine out of Kansas, he ran this motor in a pretty heavy like street strip car, 3,600 pounds, and it went 690s at like 206, and I believe it was like 3,600 pounds. So that motor is pretty dang solid. It is a tall deck block, but it is an aluminum Keith Black block. And the guy got pretty mad at me that I went and picked it up today. But at the same time, what are you supposed to do? How long do you leave your parts hostage for, right? Like, how long do you leave them at a machine shop without them even being touched? And like, to make it even worse, the parts weren't even in the shop. They were in a shipping container in the back. And he told me when I dropped them off, like before I even dropped them off, he's like, yeah, I'll be able to knock this out in a couple months. I was like, okay. I dropped it off, I won't believe, early August. I could go back and double check, but sometime in early August-ish, we dropped them off. And yeah, so I don't know, even by October, November, should have had a sleeve in it and the head repaired. No big deal. But about 3 months after the deal, after I dropped it off, I messaged him and, hey, do we have an update? He's like, I got a sleeve on order. It should be here soon. Well, I got that same story, like, all the way up until recently. Well, we ripped the head stud out of the block like 4 weeks ago. Not the head stud, sorry, the rocker stud out of the block like 4 weeks ago. And these heads are a Jessel's shaft mount system. I wanted to have these heads on the car. And what does he say? He was out of town. I said, dude, I just need to pick up my stuff at this point. Like, I have a good set of spare heads
they have quite a bit of value to them. I got a good block, and that motor should be a spare motor that's sitting in the trailer. Like, we can't run like this. I can't be invested in the parts when it's supposed to be a whole motor that, you know, can keep this journey going. And yeah, so the whole reason I bought that motor that's sitting back there is because 2 other machine shops had that motor. This is going back to the Dirty 30, guys. All the way back to the Dirty 30, 2019, 2020. The block, all that stuff. I was sitting at one machine shop for over a year with a pretty hefty down payment to purchase the rods, the pistons, and just do the machine work on it. Like, pretty hefty down payment. Just to order that stuff. And it sat there for over a year. They got about to tell me they were working on it. They never touched it. So I brought it to another machine shop. They said they'd get after it. And that stuff sat there for, I think I let it sit there for 6 or 8 months. Stuff never got touched. So I picked it up there. And luckily, I did find a machine shop to do some of the machine work there. Unfortunately, like, the pistons that they ordered weren't going to work in the thing because it's, you know, the thing makes over 2,000 horsepower. Like, you can't have these little street pistons in the dang thing that they ordered for it. So, long story short, I got all that back, and then I had to order up another set of rods. Then I went to a different set of friggin' pistons and stuff like that to get this motor together. But long story short, that's what's making this deal so freaking difficult, right? Like, financials are one thing, but stupid stuff like that, when you're invested into, I won't lie, the spare motor, the main motor that we had in Straight Gangster and the Homegrown Hustler, I bought that motor for $10,000, complete. Had the profiler heads with the Jessel system on it, the Keith Black aluminum block, Kelly's Magnum crankshaft, oil pan, literally a complete motor, and it's a 2,000 plus horsepower motor that he sold me for $10,000, and it needed to freshen up, and I freshened it up, and it treated us pretty dang well. It's a billet steel rod motor at 16. I don't know if those were Crowder or Oliver Billet Max Series rods, but had 16 pistons because he had 2 of these motors, and the one got hurt, so he gave me all the spares to the hurt motor, and with it. So, like, it was an awesome deal, and I greatly appreciate him giving me that motor at that price.
In about 10 miles, take exit 94A to merge onto I-90 East toward Erie, Pennsylvania.
He knew the other parts that I had in the block and stuff like that's in here now. They're all tied up in a machine shop, and like we were gonna be stuck. Like we didn't have nothing to put in the Homegrown Hustler. So we ended up putting that motor in the Homegrown Hustler. We went fast with it. It was the first time putting an aluminum motor in the Homegrown Hustler, and it loved it. So we came out with Straight Gangster with that motor in it, and we did her at Dig or Die July 22nd. And it is what it is. I'm going to see if John up in Canada, if we can get the parts up to him. He's treated us phenomenal. ProTech Racing Engines up there. The only problem is getting the stuff across the border is sometimes a little bit difficult because it is all used parts. So we don't have like the actual prices on parts and stuff like that. They want to have receipts for parts that are used. And like you don't have receipts for used parts. So we're going to see if we can get those up to him. If not, we'll try to find another machine shop. Ideally, I'd love to have the profiler heads. I love my trick flow heads, but I really need a shaft mount rocker system on this motor, so I wouldn't mind putting the profiler heads with the shaft mount system on Straight Gangster for the butt naked race. But I'd have to get some O-rings in those heads to help seal the head gasket, because I don't think it would hang in there without an O-ring in there. So we're gonna have to run pretty good mile an hour. Like, I'll be honest with you, it's gonna be a 4-second race. I'm not gonna tell you how far into the fours, but it's gonna be a 4-second race at butt naked. There's $40,000 online. I think Straight Gangster's a good car. We need to order up a set of tires and some other stuff, but we're gonna try to get the pieces together to come out there and swing as hard as we can. Like I said, the transmission is at Extreme Automatics. getting a freshen up, just making sure that's perfectly okay. I screwed up and I had the transmission lines on backwards after friggin' rebuilding that motor and thrashing on stuff that I shouldn't have to thrash on. That's what makes that deal so friggin' difficult, is because, like, I should have had a spare friggin' motor in the trailer. But no, like, you get parts that are friggin' not getting worked on, and I don't want to say getting lied to or nothing like that, but, like, they definitely give you some false expectations and tell you, yeah, you know, 3 months in, oh, I'll have it done in the next few weeks. And at 9 months, he goes and tells you, all your shit's in the corner, go pick it up. And it's not even in the shop, it's in a freaking shipping container, right? And, like, it literally hasn't been touched. So, yeah. How long do you leave your parts hostage for, right? We don't have the ability to have freaking 3 spare motors, but we should have freaking 2 spare motors. We should have a motor. We should have 2 complete motors right now. The tall deck motor and the 9.8 deck motor. They're interchangeable with the way I built the turbo plumbing and stuff like that. I just swapped the lids on it, and we could run either one of those motors, and we should have still had spare parts for, like, the good motor that's in straight gangster now. So this is me rambling a little bit, but at the same time, guys, this gives you a little bit of an idea of what's making this deal so freaking difficult. Why the amount of work is more than it actually should be. Because, like, we have enough spare parts, but those spare parts should be complete motors. And when something goes wrong, I should be able to, boom, get straight gangster back up running in the next day, in a day or 2, swap the motors out, and then you can start working on it, right? Make sure everything's checked out. You can go test straight gangster before that $20,000 race, right? If I had the transmission lines on backwards, well, then you get to fix it. But, like, when you don't have any of your spare parts, what are you supposed to do, right? Like, you got to make whatever you have on your hand is what you got to come up with. And, like, that's just not, that sucks. But that's just, is what it is. Like, I don't know. It's tough. Sourcing parts is difficult. But when you have people giving you false expectations, or, you know, telling you, oh, I'll help you out, I'll have it done in the next couple months, and that couple months turns into 9 months, and they never touched the thing or ordered the parts or nothing, what the hell are you supposed to do? Like, that stuff is just, that sucks. So, me and Sexy Rexy are here finishing up the ride back to New York. Go hang out with Miley and Maddie. I miss my damn kid. That's what makes it even worse, right? Like, coming out here trying to compete, doing what we can to keep the journey going and stuff like that, and fighting these battles just makes it really hard to climb an uphill battle when you have stuff like that happening. But we're going to regather. I'm going to try to find someone that maybe O-ring the heads on this, O-ring the profiler heads, get a couple valves, and I wouldn't mind putting those heads on it before the butt naked.
In 2 miles, take exit 94A to merge onto I-90 East toward Erie, Pennsylvania.
I believe that the heads and everything that are on the car right now will get the job done, but I'd really like to have a shaft mount rocker system on this deal, and make sure that we have no issues, valve train issues. If that's the case, I will need some spare, or I'd like to find some spare aluminum or steel, like 1.7 ratio big block Chevy rocker arms. Even if you guys just have some pieces and stuff like that, I got, you know, basically a half a set of spare rocker arms and stuff like that. But the aluminum ones, the exhaust side breaks every once in a while with the cam profiles. So we'll see what we can do. Appreciate it, guys. Talk to you soon.